know the channel name, right? We have two guests.
Okay. Welcome to the stream, guys. I think I see Kane on the call. So, um, welcome, Kane. Happy birthday if you are listening. Um, yeah, that's an unexpected surprise. So,
Hmm.
you're welcome to the stream. This is my first stream, and we're just figuring some things out while we actually set it up for what we're about to do. So, this is for anyone who's listening now and in the future. What the purpose of this live stream is that we are starting a new series, and in this series, Anirudh, who's about to join us on the stream, is helping me, and I'm helping him in the process to basically create something that anyone who is completely new to RPA or is practicing RPA currently, but in the beginning stages of the journey, anyone can come and learn and develop their skills in RPA. So I already finished one session with Anirudh, which will be available later, uh, and this is we are starting session 2 now. And in this session, what we are trying to do, and we are doing this live so that we can share the journey and you can follow along as Anirudh goes along on his journey. He is someone who comes to RPA from a completely non-technical background, non-programming background. So he's learning RPA from scratch, and we are starting with UiPath as just one technology that he wants to improve at. In session one, we've basically just done some initial setup, and then in this session, we are going to see what next steps can he take to improve, where he currently is. And I will invite you all of you to come and join this journey, start your own, and support him on this journey. So that's basically uh, the purpose or the goal we are trying to get at with this stream series. It ideally we'll have this every weekend, and you also can set your own weekly targets as we go along in this journey. So on when I share my screen, you will see Anirudh join us, and also I have a progress tracker that I've set it up for him. We will just quickly recap what we did in the previous session and then move on to what the next steps will be. So, Anirudh, welcome to the stream
Hi,
and
good evening,
welcome to the
Ashu.
call.
Yeah, thank you.
I see Kane's comments here. Yeah, so thanks, Kane. Let me know how the stream goes tomorrow. And yeah, we have one more viewer who's currently watching, so welcome to the stream. And Anirudh,
Yeah.
so just to give a little bit of an introduction or a background of where you come from to the RPA journey, that will help the listeners and viewers to get some idea on where we are coming from.
Okay, so I'm basically from India, Maharashtra state, and I have done my graduation in mechanical engineering. So I do have a good experience in working in a manufacturing company when I get passed out of it from 2017. Okay, then later I went in sales. So all that steps I took in my career in the my field of mechanical, where I found that the growth is limited, where I was like where I felt a need that I need to upgrade my skills and learn something new according to the time, because the trends and the working things, the patterns, everything is changing, and I do need to be in this world, like in the fast changing world. So I was just searching around what else I can do with the same background of engineering, where I have very less knowledge of coding, or I do have a very less knowledge of computers, or like these gadgets and all. Okay, so I was just looking around. I got a couple of courses also, but yeah, RPA, robotics process automation, it really made sense to me. And Yeah, see, when you're willing to learn something, and the student is ready, the teacher appears. The God sends the teacher directly. So yeah, that's how I met Ashu, and I'm very grateful to him that he is guiding me day in day out in my course. Yeah, thank you, Ashu. Thank you again.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Anirudh. And so yeah, just to add to what Anirudh just said, and so he comes to this from a non-technical, non-programming background, as I already said, and he also covered. Uh, just to add to that, the point behind all of this, the point behind having this series or having this journey, having him start this journey, is that robotic process automation, as I try to say, is a technology that anyone can learn. Of course it will be a little bit of a tricky path on, there is a little bit of a learning curve in the beginning, but if you're really committed, this is something that applies to any industry. So even the current industry where you're already working, there may be a scope for an some kind of automation, because right now every industry is trying to use automation to increase the efficiency of their day in day out working mechanism, and that automatically impacts all the workers who have anything to do with computers. So even if it's just a little bit of data entry at the end of some task that you complete, it could be involving physical material to be handled, but yet because we need electronic records of everything these days, there is some kind of computer work involved at the end of or at the beginning of the task, or both. So we have robotic process automation that can automate these tasks for you, and that is the point, because every company these days is trying to automate some or most of the processes that involve computers, so that the workers don't have to do them anymore. If you are someone who is doing that work manually currently, then that means your current working methodology is about to be impacted, or is already being impacted by the introduction of RPA into your process. If you understand what the robot can do for you, and by robot I mean it's a software robot, meaning it's a software program that lives inside your computer or inside a remote computer and does part of the job for you. If you are in a project like that, then if you understand what the robot can do for you, you can actually ask the most efficient, or you can help produce the most efficient way that process is optimized, and introduce automation in the right places, and keep the manual input to a minimum, but be involved in the process throughout. That is the point. So that's what I'm trying to help Anirudh manage, because he comes from a mechanical background, and even the industry that he's familiar with is currently you know starting to acquire RPA or
Yeah,
other types of automation, and knowing about this will help him in that field, or uh, even better, which he is trying to do, to actually be on the developing side of RPA. So that's what we are trying to achieve. Now, with that long introduction, let's actually move on to the progress tracker that we've currently set up. We've set up with UiPath. We are starting with UiPath, as it's one of the most popular and freely available tools currently in the market. And I, full disclosure, I am a UiPath MVP, which is a community MVP, a title awarded by UiPath community to people who are just trying to help out the community in any way possible. So I've been doing this for the last 3 years. I've been a UiPath MVP for the last 2 years, in the last 3 years, um, twice in the last 3 years. And the point of this MVP program is also so that we can be around, let's say, on forums or in other places where we can reach out and help others, or anyone who reaches back. We can help them go along on their journey. That's how Anirudh and I connected. So what I've asked Anirudh to do so far is, as you can see on the screen, he set up a new account on academy.uipath.com, cloud.uipath.com, which is their online cloud platform where you can manage and set up your robots, and forum.uipath.com, which is the UiPath community. You can get answers to your questions by just reviewing existing topics, or you can ask your own questions and get answers to them right away, because this is a very active community. So I think we finished all of that last month, and um, in our previous catch up, which was 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
we set up your next targets, Anirudh, which
Yes.
was I think you were already halfway through or quite a bit ahead with the
Yes.
RPA Developer Foundation course, right?
Now this foundation course is been completely like done completely, like
Awesome.
successfully done. Yeah. So I
Okay,
just completed yesterday only. So today is
perfect.
13th, as the deadline says 12th of August. Yes, it is done on 12th of August itself.
Right on time. Nice. Okay. So, and the next one, I think we were just talking about, this is not a, a specific target, but this is more of an arbitrary thing that
Yeah.
you should just, get into the habit of, which is being active on the forum and getting to know, how things usually work. So you'll see a lot of active topics being discussed, and sometimes even if there is no clear answer to one of the forum topics, just reading through some of the opinions and some of the information that people share, that it might actually answer, or it clicks sometimes like a week later or some other time when you're actually struggling with something. You already know the answer because you were active on the forum.
Yes.
So that's something that you should keep as an ongoing effort. I know you have been active on forum, but just also making it, like an keep it like an ongoing practice, I
Did
would
you
say.
see my questions or what?
Yeah, I've been active on forum lately, so I did see
Wow.
your name pop up here and
Yeah.
there.
So
So
that's great. I was not aware that you will be able to see that thing, or like so many people asking a couple of questions in a day, right? So but yeah,
yeah,
that's
no,
okay.
I'm trying. So, but good to see that you're already active. Uh, the next thing, I think, LinkedIn profile, you had already done that, so I know your LinkedIn profile was updated. Mm, if
We'll
you
add
just
this
completed it, I think we can still keep it as a to do. You can do that,
upload. Yeah.
in the coming days. Include the RPA experience that you already have gathered, doing the RPA projects that you currently did. I would
Yeah.
say, adding that to your LinkedIn profile will definitely make mark. So I think so far so good. We've been checking off the targets nicely. So it might be time to now get serious. So far, before we get to the next steps, what have you, in your educational, journey so far, have you hit any roadblocks or any challenges or something that's not really clear with UiPath Studio? What have been your challenges, if you would like to share?
Challenges, considering challenges, they are very basic. When I'm using the this what we say student version of UiPath, I believe it has few of the other limitations, not as the real time one which are used in organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
But like the UiPath, which is for the students,
Mm-hmm.
which is free of cost, which for the academics, so you need to learn UiPath software. So it has some differences from the real time software which are used in a company. Am I right?
Uh, Not
Is it
really,
true?
because yes, you can't open one type of automation in another,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's restrictive in any sense of the word, because if you are using UiPath Community Edition,
yeah,
it should still give you most of the features. for example, at least for the operational stuff, you should be able to create an RE framework based project. You should be able to configure it exactly as you would a an enterprise project. So if there's a project if you're trying to connect to a an automation cloud that is on enterprise plan with your community edition, that's not allowed. You can
No.
only connect with an enterprise edition. The cloud.uipath.com account that you would have set up for yourself is a community edition cloud.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that should allow you to connect with your local community edition studio. In going towards what you can and cannot do with your studio, I don't think there is any restrictions for the community edition project unless you've actually hit some kind of roadblock where you couldn't get past something. We could
Yeah.
specifically target that question, but as far as I understand, if it's an RE framework, which is that's the standard recommendation from UiPath, you should create all your projects in RE framework. It's a bit tedious to understand in the beginning, but that's definitely in the long term the best thing you could do for becoming an RPA or becoming a UiPath developer, at least, because that framework is quite robust, and it saves you doing a lot of error handling and exception handling in the long term. So if you're familiar with it, even for smaller processes, when your processes get more complicated, the underlying framework stays the same, which is absolutely crucial when you're working in a professional environment. So I think, my next step for you was also going to be get yourself completely familiar with the RE framework, because that
Oh,
will be your biggest challenge in tackling real life projects when you get into a UiPath
oh,
project.
okay.
So I will add that as one of the items that you do. RE framework complete walkthrough. I would be happy to do this on this call, but if you're a little bit familiar with it, then it might be easier. If you feel that if you feel that me giving you a little bit of an introduction
Yeah,
will help
introduction.
you.
That will be great actually. It
Okay.
will help me to understand the basics, fundamentals that are more important.
Okay, so we can do that on this call because that'll make for a good, you know, just a little extracted video that we could do later, and I can, because this one thing has always been my pet peeve of sorts, that you on on YouTube, sorry, there is a lot of, I've tried to do tried to search for a video that covers exception handling, or tried to do a video, search a video which says which gives a walkthrough of RE framework in a basic manner, but I haven't managed to find it. Like the minimum I've seen is at least still 40 minutes or something. So you would have to sit down through a 1 hour long video to understand completely what RE framework is all about. And I've always wanted to do a shorter version of it, and it obviously takes a lot of time to record, edit, and precisely point to exactly the things that that are important. So instead, on this off the cuff fashion, what I would like to do is maybe just give a very brief overview, because as a follow up on this, in the next session we can probably dive a little bit deeper into what RE framework, some peculiarity or some specifics of the framework. I'm launching my UiPath Studio. This is
Yeah.
also a community edition, by the way, as you can see
Okay.
here. So again, I don't think it restricts you in any way from doing anything. Okay, so let's create a robotic enterprise framework that is RE framework. So what what this framework does is it allows you to create enterprise projects for of any scale or of any complexity, because typically, so just to while I create the project, I'll just name it something simple. Okay, you have the option to create Windows and Windows Legacy. We are speaking about this in August 2023, so it's absolutely not recommended to create Windows Legacy project from this point on, because Windows Legacy is in the process of being rolled out. Decommissioned. So soon we won't have this option anymore. So ideally, create all your projects in Windows, which is the standard framework now. You have the option of VB and C Sharp at your current level. With the, I mean, how familiar you are with VB and C Sharp, I don't think you need to worry about this too much. Just know that once you choose one, there is no converting it back. So you can either go with VB or C Sharp. We'll keep it VB. Most of the, most of the companies worldwide use VB as a default. There are arguments for C Sharp to be used. I personally also prefer C Sharp because it's more familiar to people who come from a programming background,
Yeah, coding.
syntactically. So it's not really too much of a debate. There's not too much of a debate. You can work well with VB and C Sharp. And you know my usual approach to this is always everything is gonna be ultimately dependent on how well you can function with Google. So if you can Google everything fine, then
Yeah,
you don't need to worry about, because syntax is always available on Google. So I'll try to keep this as quick as possible.
yeah,
But speaking of RPA in general, why do we have, or what is the most important feature or salient feature of RPA, is that it's able to, or the robots, they are able to do things in quick succession very fast. That has always been the point of RPA, that we are able to um, do repetitive tasks in quick succession without without many failures. So if you can get the process programmed correctly, you can process 1,000 transactions in a very quick short amount of time, which over time, as you scale it up across multiple machines or across multiple transactions, the overall time taken by a robot versus a human is significantly less in case of the robot. And that is the argument, or that is the win for the robot. Otherwise, there is no point in automating a process that a human is actually better at performing than a robot. So that's the whole point of
right.
RPA, which then naturally brings us to the point that we need a cyclical system or cyclical system, which just comes back, does the same thing again, and comes back and does the same thing again, takes care of everything else in the process, comes back, does the same thing again for the next record and the next record and the next record. Which is why we need something like this, what you're seeing on screen. This is called a state diagram. I'll zoom it in so that it's easier on the YouTube screen. So you can, it's very easy to follow the direction. We start with initialization. So the process starts and it invokes or it executes whatever is in the initialization. Now what you're looking at is like a block diagram, but it's like a flowchart that is actually live. So it's not just a diagram that we draw on paper, because everything you see here is actually interactive and you can go in and program more stuff in it. So that is the general nature of how things work in UiPath. You will see a block, and inside that block you can put more stuff, a series of activities. It could be a flowchart, it could be a sequence. Um, this is the as I said, state machine diagram. You will see here the type state machine. Maybe the font is too small for the tooltip text, but that that icon there means state machine. So this is a state machine diagram, which means just based on one kind of output we can direct stuff there. So for example, this has two possible outputs. It could be successful or it could be system exception. Whatever is being executed inside has two possible outcomes, and those outcomes are configured at the bottom of each state. So if it's successful, go here. If it's failure or error, then go here. Those are the transitions. That's what state machine does well. It decides based on certain output where to go, right? That's clear, right?
Uh, okay, so is it? Sorry, shall I ask a question here?
Yeah, sure.
So it now, as I've seen this RE framework, is it similar or is it a kind of template what we are using here?
Yes. So what I did was I used a template to create a project. So the what you're looking at is basically just a blank project. I haven't customized it to my needs at all. It's literally just an empty template. I used a template provided by UiPath. So this has been built by UiPath. If I just opened or created a blank process, it would just give me a simple main file with nothing in it. Instead, I created a robotic enterprise framework. There are many more templates that are available by going to the, um, as I just clicked it.
Okay. So RE
So,
framework is like one kind of template only because you're in
correct.
the tab of templates. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And if you go with the blank process, then it will open this thing sequence directly sequence.
Correct. And so every project that you create will have this main.saml by default. Now this is kind of going away from RE framework. This is constant. You could create any type of project. It will typically have a main.saml file, and then that in the case of a blank process, the main SAML will be simply an empty sequence. It won't have anything in it. But they've built this for you as a template project, the UiPath. So instead of using a blank process, I used RE framework, which is why I got this created template ready for me. And that's document. Oh, sorry, this file is not the only thing that I get with the framework. There's an entire set of workflows that also comes with it. We don't really need to worry about that right now because I'm trying to keep this as a short walkthrough. And I'll teach you, or I'll show you how you can figure out where exactly the flow is going so that you can do this trace by yourself. Make sense?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, so just to summarize what I was saying earlier, there's each state here. These are states. So there's an initialization is one state. As you can see, type state, name, initialization. Then you have another type state, and with the name get transaction data. So there are four states that your program can be in. So you know how we say, mental state, emotional state. Basically, it's just a place. It could be a physical state that you're in, or so just like that. When the robot or when the process is running, it can be in one state at a time. So it can be initializing something, or it could be in get transaction data, which means it's actually getting data from the to process, like whatever next record is, and then it could be processing it based on the outcome from process. It could be marking it successful, moving on to get the next one, or if it fails, it will be going to another. So that's what we'll see what is happening there. But the point or the concept state is that basically your job or your process can be in one state at a time, one of these four. So we'll see the initialization first, and then we'll move on to the next one. So initialization, imagine, let's say you are doing something manually. um, like something that you are going to have to do, let's say 10 more times. It could be, let's say I said, we have this bank account and I want you to download the statements for the last 3 financial years. Now, usually how the bank interfaces, like website interfaces work, is that it'll give you an option to go statements, and then you can select one FY, like previous financial year or previous financial year, and then you have to set the dates. I want 3 transactions, I mean 3 different statements for each financial year. You can't do that in one go. You would have to do it 3 times, right? But it won't be the entire process 3 times. For example, if would you log out each time after you downloaded statement and then log back in again and download the second financial year statement? No, you would log in once and then you download one, then navigate to download transaction or download statement menu, then download the second financial year and then do the same thing for the third financial year. So
Absolutely.
your login part was just once. That's what initialization does. In initialization, you would only configure stuff that you only have to do once. It could be connecting to a server, logging into a website, any of that. Close any previous sessions, for example, so that you don't have a duplicate session open. So when you start, you assume that you just want to start with a clean slate, but you also need all the setup that you need to perform this process properly. That is the point of initialization state. So you would put all of that stuff in there. So let's see actually what happens here. Ignore some of the assignments and stuff, because that will become relevant later, and I want you to figure some of this out by yourself, so I'm not giving you every detail here because some of it is easy to figure out. Now there is a specific thing happens, which is it reads a configuration file where we can specify a lot of things. So if you look at the data folder, it won't show in this version, but let me open the folder here. So by clicking on that icon, you can directly open the folder where your project is stored, right? And then in there you have the data folder in which there is a config file. Now this config file is actually a lot of initial settings are initialized using this config file, and what you have there is basically it sets up logging, it sets up what queue to use. You can specify constant stuff like that, should mark job as faulted. So these are things that will become relevant as you learn more and more about RE framework. But the point is that every time the process executes, it goes and reads all of this in its memory, in its execution memory, meaning as long as that job is running, it will know these details without having to look into this file. It's like reading it once and remembering as long as the job is running. That's the generic, that's the standard translation of that. So getting back into this, what it does is it checks if that it's already read that, which it won't have read on the very first execution. So if if the config object is nothing, then it basically goes and reads the config object. So one important activity in UiPath in general, this is the most important part for you to understand what's exactly happening. So look for this triangle, right? This triangle means invoke workflow file. That's the type. You will see the tooltip text. It says type invoke workflow file. What this does is this activity allows you to call an external file that is separate from this, which means it will be a reusable workflow that you can call from many different places. It's a different file that is also stored somewhere in this project. So you will see init all settings. That's another file here. So it has some things that are separately stored outside this file. They are not in this file. This is a, if you have programming background, this is a very simple or this is a very common thing that is done in programming, where you save something externally. It's called, you could call it function, procedure. In this case it's a workflow, but it's simply a way of saying I might need to do this many times from different, you know, at different times or at different, in different situations. I might have to do this again and again. So rather than, let's say, if you treat this as, let's say, 10 lines of code, if you wanted to do that many times at different places, would you copy paste that 10, those 10 lines, you know, 3 or
Different
4
types of
times or
variables.
5 times? It makes no sense. Yeah. So if you had like a sequence of things that you had to do more than once, you wouldn't want to. Let me give you a real life example. What is happening in this workflow is that we are basically saying go and read this config file. Okay, and that's the config file that I just showed you. So it goes and opens this config.xlsx, which is under the data folder. That's what I'm saying. Go to data
Yes.
folder and open the config file, and then you know, it goes and opens that file. You'll see the file is being opened in somewhere. So that's the config file. We will work on the variables and everything later, but you know, just to show you, it's saying read range, which is an activity that reads an Excel file. So you'll see there, reads the value of a range in range Excel format from a spreadsheet as a data table. Basically it's saying that it will open that Excel file and remember everything from that sheet. So it reads that file. If I wanted this to be read from a different file, and I called this, you know, 3 or 4 different times, by making a change just once here, instead of saying open the config file, if I had some other file, let's say here, it could be config copy, or I want to call it something completely different, settings, right? So if I wanted to use settings file instead of config file, then I would have to make that change in every place that I've called it, or that I've made this. Instead, I'm making that change only once here, and then any number of times I call this workflow, it will automatically reflect in all of those places.
Okay.
Like here, if I had, I call it 2 or 3 times, right? If I didn't use this as a separate file, if I would have to copy paste all of this, like however many steps you see, I would have to copy it 3 or 4 times here, one after the other. So makes my code longer. And also, if I wanted to make one change, it would have to be made in every place. That's why we save it somewhere else, so that we can just make that change once and everything will automatically change itself. That is what we call reusable workflows. So this is a reusable workflow. Every file that you see here is a reusable workflow, which means something you can call multiple times from
Okay.
many different files. That is the point. You save it somewhere else, so that even some of these files would be calling each other. So that's to make sure that your one file doesn't get too big, so that you lose track of where everything is, and also to be able to call them multiple times from different places. So I know it's probably too much to in just
But I'm
one
getting the
call.
point. I know the invoke thing is used to, transfer the data from one file to the another file.
Correct.
Yeah. So I've been practice. I have done the practice on it, but definitely I know the words though. So I just need to search it more and do the practice. So definitely will get to understand. And if I have any problem, we'll definitely
Yeah.
approach you for the same.
So so as the next kind of task or assignment, I'm adding one extra step here. Um, trace. workflow calls within RE framework. So what I would like you to do is, just like we discussed or just like we saw the init all settings, go and see how other workflows are connected or where all of these workflows come into picture. To continue this, and we'll do a couple more so that I can, so that we can see what's happening. So init all settings, so that will just basically, it reads the config file and comes back with all the information from config. It keeps it in memory and moves on. What does it do next? So it will then get the name of the queue. That again, we'll do this in session 3, not now, because then I'm hoping that you'll have a better understanding of what RE framework is all about. So we'll get to the queues part later. So you can, if you feel like that is being too much, you can ignore the anything that has orchestrator and queue name references. You can skip those. um, the kill all processes, that's another workflow. So you can see that the open workflow button is a dead giveaway that this is an external workflow file. But so you can just simply click on open workflow and see what's inside. So here it's simply just logging one message, because that workflow is not actually killing anything. But to use the example from before, um, like you wanted to log into a bank application. So typically, bank website, online banking, they don't allow duplicate sessions. So you would want to close the existing session so that you can log in again. You would do things like that in kill all processes or close all applications. So there is a close all applications as well here. See, so what happens in these kind of workflows is, it allows you to uh, do things like, in close all applications, you would go to, let's say if you're only exclusively using Chrome for all your automation things, so you would go Chrome, check if my, I don't know, like HDFC net banking session is active. If it's active, that is the logout button. Click on logout and then close the session. So once logout is confirmed, you close the Chrome window. Sometimes there will be applications that are running even after you close them. For example, if you uh, close Chrome, there is a Chrome taskbar icon that is still running. In some cases, it might make sense to actually kill the process from task manager. So just like you could open task manager on your machine, and you will go and close Chrome like that. So you can do that same thing from UiPath as well. So you can say kill Chrome process. That's what these workflows are for. So move, keep going through that, and then you'll see init all applications. So what does that workflow do? So again, these are all blank template files. That's why you don't see anything opening. But in this init all applications is where you would want to open Chrome, log into Chrome, or let's say, with that same example, log into your net banking and have your session ready, so that if you want to download 3 transactions, that would be the real place that you will then do it on a repetitive basis, if that makes sense. Yeah. So just go through the main workflow and see how these workflows come into picture, like where they connect with each other.
Before going in detail with this RE framework, I
Mm-hmm.
just have a concern.
Yeah.
Can we, if see, there are so many tabs in line in this thing. Okay, so if I don't want anything as this RE frame, if I want to skip any step in
Mm-hmm.
between, I can disable it. Can I disable this step in RE framework, or it
Mm-hmm.
is default only?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so if can you just open the process? Any other initiate?
Like this, or you
There
mean
was a sequence, right? There was a sequence.
uh-huh, yeah.
we could see the sequence,
You mean this?
the, the workflow, Yeah,
In here, yeah.
yeah. So if I don't want anything, so I can just disable that by clicking the option, right?
Yeah, you can disable or delete something that you definitely don't need. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
great. That's great then. So it's
Okay.
not compulsion that we can do the modifications
Yeah,
according to
yeah.
what
So
we need.
yeah, this is just a template. So it gives you a baseline, and then of course you can modify it however you want.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
the real beauty of using RE framework, and that's why I said in the very beginning, it's it initially it's very difficult to understand how to deal with RE framework if you're completely new, but in the long term it gives you a default framework, like it becomes second nature eventually, where then you don't have to think twice about, oh, what if this goes wrong or what if that goes wrong, because you know there's a catch all underneath. So exception handling is I don't want to go there right now, but if you want to get a basic idea of what exception handling is, on my YouTube channel you will find a video about exception handling where I've tried to make it simple enough for anyone to understand what it is, right? And that'll give you an idea of what happens when something goes wrong that we expect or we don't expect. So we can cover both type of scenarios. Like, let's say I would expect that my password expires 3 months from now. Every month or every 3 months, net banking password changes. So it expires. So one fine day, if my robot is running unattended, it may not be able to log in. That is something I can plan for by just looking for the error message saying, if it says your password has expired, don't try to change it, just exit. Don't run the process for that day. I'll manually fix it. That's my decision, right? That is a situation I can expect. So it could be called a business rule exception, where I specifically tell the robot to not proceed when password has expired. That's one example. But what if, and this is just a big if, but what if the net banking system itself goes down for whatever reason? Like, sometimes servers go down. It happens from all the time. If you're from India, think of IRCTC.
I guess
So,
it is. It
you know,
happens. Lot many transactions happening in a
ex-
minute,
exactly.
right?
So when there are unexpected problems, that would be it's called a runtime exception, as the name automatically explains what it is. It's a runtime. It's something you can't plan for, or something you don't know when it will happen in the process. Like, you could have typed, when you loaded the page, it loaded on the home page, but then you typed username and password and clicked login, and then server went down. So
Yeah,
it could happen
error.
at any stages, right? It could be during your download, or it could be during while you're, like, during typing the details in, anytime. So these type of exceptions are runtime exceptions, and the RE framework is built to handle both types of exceptions, so that you'll never kind of like just lose track of what it was doing. And I'll show you that specific part. So you will do this as a part of your homework, and throughout the week, absolutely, just drop me a message if you're stuck in any particular place. I'm happy to jump in and help. But you will see that there is something called try catch block, and this is explained in my YouTube video, as I referred to you. I'll put that in the description of this video, and also I'll send you the link. But what a try catch basically means is, I'm telling the robot to try doing something, but for whatever reason, anything goes wrong while you're trying to do this part, then catch the exception. So try and expect an exception to occur. If there's an exception, catch it, right?
Okay.
That's how you read it. It's a try to do this. If something fails, catch the exception, and then catch them in two ways. You can either catch it as a business rule exception, or you can catch it as a normal exception, right? So this would be the other type. where everything else is captured. So if it's not a business rule exception that I explicitly defined, for example, if password expired, don't proceed, throw a business rule exception and stop working. Anything else, I handle it in a different way. So what happens is, there is another workflow. I'm showing you this workflow directly. Again, this is one of the files from the framework folder, set transaction status. But I open this just to show you that we have, like, the RE framework automatically caters for a success scenario, a business exception scenario, and a system exception scenario. So it will never happen that you're processing a transaction, something goes wrong, and you have no idea what happened. So if you build a new workflow from scratch, like a blank process, you
Yeah.
will have to plan all of this. Like, you'll have to create these kind of structures where what happens when it's a successful case, what happens if there's a business exception, what happens if it's a system exception. But RE framework does all of that groundwork for you, and all you have to do is just configure your own stuff, like whatever you need to do in the process part. So your exceptions, like in the try part, you just have to do everything. Catch part is all done for you. That is exception handling, and it's a very crucial part of generally programming languages, which is why I'm not going too technical on this. Try catch is a whole other, animal, so we'll tackle it later. But I would say it's a 10-minute video on my channel. You definitely go and watch that. It'll give you some idea of what happens in RE framework as well. So it might help as you study more towards this. So that was just to show you an example of what RE framework readily does for you. This is already done, so you don't need to worry about it. You'll always have a track of what went wrong in your transaction, and then we just worry about the process, this is the actual thing that happens. So in process, you just write your main step that are going to be done on a repetitive basis. So tying this back to the main flow, what we do is we initialize, we do all the single single execution, single use stuff, like logging into the net banking. Get transaction data is basically getting parameters or getting information such as what do you need. For example, I'll go back to that same constant example of 3 financial year worth of statements, right? So this get transaction data will tell me first time get the financial year 2020 2021. Then it will get transaction data. It will know that it needs to download for 2020 2021. So process transaction will have actual steps of how to download it from net banking for 2020-21. Then it, so let's say it successfully downloaded the, sorry, let's say it successfully downloaded that transaction. So this is the success path, right? So success path, sorry, goes from here and goes to here. So basically everything was fine, just go and get the next transaction. So it will get 2021 2022, that will get transaction data will again execute a second time. Then process transaction, that same whatever it input it got, it will actually download for that parameter. Then successful, it goes and gets the third set of parameters, so third transaction. So that is what's happening. You get a if you have 10 different things to do, it will do exactly same thing 10 times. If you multiply it, like scale it up to 1,000 things, for example, if you want to download reports for 1,000 different customers for the same date range, it could be last week's transactions for 1,000 customers.
Okay.
It could be that. So you can configure however it's done in the process file, and we will get into get transaction data in the next session, because that's where the queue orchestrator queue comes into picture. But process is basically just the ability to repeat the same steps over and over again for a different set of parameters each time. And as long as it's successful, it keeps going back to get new data. If it runs into an exception, I'll separate the lines so that it's easier to read. So if there's a system exception here, see, that's a system exception, meaning an unexpected exception, then it goes and resets the whole thing. So it will go and read the config file again. It will kill all, like kill Chrome, log out of Chrome, everything, log out of net banking, re-log in, because like I said, system exception could be server down, system exception could be email not available, whatever. So it will just start with a blank slate again. That's why we send system exception back to main initialization. But if it's a business rule exception, that's something like I know that I don't want to continue. I specifically asked it to just skip for that one transaction. So it will go and fetch the next transaction and it will try to work for that, if that makes sense. Yeah. So my password expired example probably doesn't apply there, but it could be a different thing. For example, like I said, for that one customer, let's say data is not available, but or in the same example, let's say for that one financial year, the data is not available or it failed for any reason. So I'll say, okay, skip that year, but you keep going for the rest of the year so that at least I can have the other 2 years transaction, if you know, things like that.
Okay.
So that would be a good example of business rule exception. That is what RE framework does, and it does effectively, very well. So that's why it's a strong recommendation to learn RE framework to do, because if you are working in a UiPath professional setting, RE framework is your best friend, because it minimizes the extra work that you have to do to make your process run properly, and it just makes it a very simple job to only focus on the real process, not all the other housekeeping stuff as they call it.
Yeah, no worries. It sounds interesting and looks good as well because it has the flow chart, right? It has all these steps and all. Definitely, whenever we will connect on the next call, the next speaker, actually. So I will have a lot of questions to ask,
Yeah,
actually.
I expect that.
Yeah.
uh, so so anyone who's watching this on live, or if you're watching it after the session has ended, I would strongly recommend I think I said it at the beginning, but also just to stress this can be a bit confusing, and I can totally understand where you're coming from, but I would say I think an important prerequisite here was, as we already covered in the beginning, Anirudh has finished his developer foundation course. So even though he has some questions as we go through this, he has already finished a lot of introductory material on UiPath. So he's aware of what workflows are, he's aware of how flowcharts work, and stuff like that. So definitely do that. If you're following along and if you drop me an email, I'll be very happy to set one up for you, and we can have sessions like these for you. So get in touch. I'm happy to have a separate session with you, and we'll just take the same journey as Anirudh has been taking with me. So I strongly recommend that you complete these steps before you get into RE framework. But otherwise, or regardless of where you are, if you have any questions about RE framework, drop them in the comments and I'll be very happy to answer them there, or we could set up a different session to actually go through them with you in person. Now, I think I already gave you an extra step there, trace workflow calls. um, I, I I think it makes sense to just add as a note, or just as one more item to you to watch the try catch block video. Let me paste a link here. Should take only a minute. So that's the video. And
Okay.
why you see a baseball glove and baseball helmet there is because, catch, like the catch, it comes from that kind of example, because the people who initially or originally built the try catch mechanism, it was supposed to be like that, so there is a good ball, ball falling from the top of a building analogy, which I included in that video, which should make it really easy, or really simple to understand what is exactly happening when we see exceptions propagating or exceptions happening. What makes it a business exception, what makes it a system exception, because system exception is like the biggest boss there is, like biggest type of exception, but system exception has different types of subset exceptions as well. So all of that is covered in simple terms in this video. So definitely watch that once, because that I think will help you understand what's happening in RE framework heavily. So definitely watch that, and we'll review, or go over any questions you have about that in the next session.
Cool.
So
Cool.
today's date is 13th August. So I'll add that for our next catch up, right?
Yeah.
Now, aside from that, when completing the RPA Developer Foundation course, were there any other challenges? I know in the previous session we already discussed a few, but did you find anything especially challenging or
No, nothing. It
okay?
once I started, then later on it became very friendly. The interface is very friendly. The steps given, they are very friendly. Video quality and everything, as we have discussed in the last video as well.
Yeah,
Everything is very systematic, so there's no such problem.
yeah,
And there's another thing that whenever I want to, if I face any problem again, and if I have any questions, I can go back again and I can watch the videos, which are very interactive,
yeah.
actually. Short videos of length of 10 to 13 minutes max, where they explain everything. So
Yeah.
that is a beautiful part what I have come across on that course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really
definitely. Yeah, and I think there was one more point I was making about. I think even in the last video we did discuss. Uh, I'm not too keen on building detailed YouTube tutorial video
yeah.
about one particular topic, and that's not, because the material changes from time to time. Like UiPath Studio as it looks now didn't look the same way 1 year ago. So UiPath product team is like amazing at constantly producing new updates and making improvements to the tool. But even aside from that fact, I think UiPath Academy is like one of the strongest resources about like for UiPath, learning UiPath, and that's why um, learning the academy courses is probably the best way, in my opinion, to learn the technology, or learn the tool. And as an added benefit, like I said to you, Anirudh, last time, that it automatically synchronizes with your forum profile, which means it'll show you that, show your profile as um, an RPA master when you complete the advanced diploma, and things like that automatically build up your profile. And then in the community you can get recognition based on the things that you've already completed. So it's very important, in my opinion, to keep up with your learning on academy, whether or not you use other UiPath videos, because there are so many videos and tutorials on YouTube that you can really learn and get a lot of value from. But even aside from that, absolutely stay on top of your academy learning, because that's definitely one of the best resources to learn and also show your work, which is more important, which is definitely important. Show your
Very
work. So that's what I would like to close that with. Uh, I think this has been really helpful and wonderful. So I'm already happy how far you've come. So I'm looking forward to the next session, and we'll go deeper with that. I think I mean I have a few plans with what we can do once you're done with RE framework, because
Yeah,
then that's when we really start to get serious, and that is the goal, to get you to a level where you can professionally start building automations, and we will work on that in the coming sessions.
perfect.
So I think we can wrap up the session here unless you have some questions.
No,
Okay. I think our audience also have stopped asking questions. I think I answered it on the stream while Anirudh was speaking, but I had a question from Mayank Sharma. Mayank had a question saying, how can I add a blank page in Microsoft Word Web? So Microsoft Word Web is basically another web application. So it's an interface, and you should be able to just use the keyboard shortcuts given by Word Web, or the interface buttons provided by Word Web to do that. You will probably have to build a UI automation. It won't be as simple as just using an integrated web. If you have the option, I would strongly recommend to just use Word Web Activities, sorry, Microsoft Word Activities, that make it very easy. And if you want to use it in or open it in Word Web, that's obviously, if you can use the MS Word Activities, it will update the Word Web version as well. But if you are restricted to using web, then I'm afraid you'll have to use the UI automation steps to just simply uh, use the keyboard shortcut, or um, any button that will add the new web. If you have
but
a specific example where you're stuck at, I'm happy to help you with a proper solution. Just send me a note, either reply to this video, like post a comment, or you can email me by going to my YouTube profile, and I'll be in touch with you. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you in the next one. Good night.
thank you, Ashu. Thank you so much. Good night.
Yeah.